There's a strange kind of magic that happens when you finally stop caring about the wrong things in life. Not giving a fuck doesn't mean being careless. It doesn't mean living recklessly, and it doesn't mean you stop loving the people or dreams that matter to you. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about understanding that your energy, your attention, and your time are the most precious resources you have. And if you waste them on meaningless drama, endless social comparisons, and chasing approval from people who don't even matter, you'll end up living a life that feels exhausting instead of fulfilling. This is the heart of Mark Manson's philosophy and the subtle art of not giving a fuck. It's not about indifference. It's about choosing what's worth caring about. We live in a culture that constantly tells us to care about everything. Every advertisement, every social media post, every headline is screaming for our attention. Look at this, be outraged about that. Care about this new gadget, this new scandal, this new way to become a millionaire in 30 days. And because we are human, we get pulled into it. We scroll endlessly. We argue about things that have zero impact on our lives. And we get anxious because it feels like there's always something more we should be doing. But here's the thing, your capacity to care is limited. If you try to give a FCK about everything, you end up giving a FSake about nothing that actually matters. Mark Manson shares his own life experiences to illustrate this. He wasn't always the guy who wrote a best-selling book about self-improvement. He was a struggling musician, broke, insecure, and obsessed with trying to be impressive. He cared about looking cool, about being admired, about being right all the time. And ironically, the more he tried to impress people, the less satisfied he felt. This is something so many of us can relate to. Think about the times you tried so hard to win someone's approval. Maybe a boss, maybe a crush, maybe even your own family. And in that process, you sacrificed your own happiness. Maybe you took a job you hated just because it looked good on your resume. Maybe you pretended to be someone you weren't just to fit in. And maybe deep down you knew you were lying to yourself. That's why the first big truth in this book hits so hard. The key to a better life is not caring about more things. It's caring about fewer things, but caring deeply about them. The irony is, when you stop chasing everything, you free up space to pursue the few things that truly light you up. Imagine your life as a house. Every day, people try to throw furniture into it. Advertisements toss in a shiny couch you don't need. Social media throws in a giant TV showing everyone else's perfect life. Your family might throw in an antique table called expectations. If you never stop and decide what actually belongs in your house, it will become so cluttered you can't even move. But when you start removing the stuff that doesn't belong, you create room for what matters. Maybe a comfortable chair where you can read in peace. Maybe a dining table where your closest friends gather. Maybe nothing but open space, so you can finally breathe. That's what not giving a fuck is about, and it begins with accepting that life itself is limited. You will not have time to do everything. You will not be loved by everyone. You will not win every argument. And that's okay. Manson tells a story about Charles Bukowski, a poet and novelist who spent most of his life as a broke, drunk, underachieving misfit. Bukowski's gravestone famously reads, "Don't try." At first, that sounds like terrible advice. Don't try. Isn't life all about trying harder? But Bukowski's point was that trying to be something you're not will destroy you. The moment you accept your flaws, embrace your limits, and stop chasing every possible dream just because society tells you to, you free yourself to focus on the things that are truly yours. Here's the twist. When you choose your struggles instead of running from them, you actually become stronger. Because life will always have problems. That's not negativity. That's reality. If you think you'll be happy only when you have no problems, you're chasing a fantasy. The secret is to choose problems you're willing to have. For example, if you want to be in a loving relationship, you have to accept the problem of having difficult conversations, compromising, and sometimes being vulnerable. If you want to start a business, you have to accept the problem of uncertainty, long hours, and occasional failure. If you want to be fit, you have to accept the problem of waking up early to work out and resisting junk food. Happiness is not the absence of problems. It's the ability to enjoy solving the problems you choose. And here's where most people get it wrong. They chase positive experiences without realizing that the pursuit of something positive is itself a negative experience, because it highlights what you lack. Think about it. If you're constantly trying to be happy, you're reminding yourself that you're not happy enough. If you're chasing wealth, you're reminding yourself that you're not rich yet. On the flip side, Accepting a negative experience often leads to a positive one. When you accept that you're insecure and still try to speak up in a meeting, you build confidence. When you accept that you might fail and still try to start that business, you increase your chances of success. This is why Manson introduces the backwards law, inspired by the philosopher Alan Watts. The more you pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied you become. And the more you accept that life is imperfect, the better it feels. In my own life, I've seen this truth play out. Years ago, I obsessed over being more productive. I bought planners, downloaded apps, read every article about 10 ways to get more done. And yet, the more I chased productivity, the more I felt like I was failing because no matter how much I did, I felt like I could do more. One day, I decided to stop. Instead of trying to cram my day with tasks, I picked 3 things that actually mattered and let the rest go. And guess what? I got more done, not because I was faster, but because I stopped wasting energy on things that didn't matter. That's the subtle art of not giving a FSA. It's not sexy. It's not about becoming superhuman. It's about living honestly. It's about deciding this is worth my time and that is not. And it's about being okay with the fact that you can't do it all. Society wants you to believe you can have it all. The truth, you can't, and that's liberating. You can choose. You can say yes to the things that matter and unapologetically say no to the rest. And when you do that, you stop living by accident and start living on purpose. Mark Manson doesn't write like your traditional self-help author, and that's exactly what makes his book so refreshing. Instead of giving you a sugar-coated pep talk, he smacks you with uncomfortable truths and says, "Here's life. Deal with it." In the previous sections, we understood that our resources of time, energy, and attention are finite, and because they're limited, we need to be extremely selective about what we care about. Now let's go deeper into how this philosophy actually works in practice. The first thing Manson tells you is that life's problems never end. They just get replaced with new problems. The idea that someday when I achieve X, I'll have no more problems is a myth. If you get rich, you'll have rich people problems and like deciding which investment will eat the least of your time, or worrying about who's genuinely your friend and who just wants your money. If you get into your dream relationship, you'll have relationship problems, like managing emotional needs, family dynamics, and communication. So the goal is not to eliminate problems. It's to choose problems that are meaningful to you. This flips the typical thinking. Instead of asking, how do I avoid problems? You ask, which problems am I willing to deal with for the rest of my life? Manson gives an example of himself as a writer. Being a writer comes with the problem of writer's block, the frustration of endless edits, the pressure of deadlines, and public criticism. But these are problems he gladly accepts because writing is what gives his life meaning. That's the key. You find what you care about by identifying the struggles you're willing to go through. If you hate the struggles that come with something, you probably don't value it as much as you think. This ties into another counterintuitive truth. Happiness is not a direct pursuit. It's a side effect of solving problems you enjoy solving. If you only chase positive emotions, you'll be on a constant high-low roller coaster, always needing the next fix. But if you embrace the process, the grind, the challenges, the setbacks, you'll feel a deeper satisfaction. Manson uses the feedback loop from hell to describe how we often make our problems worse. We feel bad about something, then we feel bad about feeling bad, and then we get angry at ourselves for feeling bad about feeling bad. It's an endless spiral. The way out is radical acceptance. Instead of resisting negative emotions, you acknowledge them without overreacting. You say, yes, I'm anxious right now, yes, I'm jealous right now, and that's okay. By removing the shame layer, the emotion loses power over you. Another core idea in the book is that certainty is the enemy of growth. We humans love being right because it gives us a sense of control and safety, but when you cling too tightly to your current beliefs, you stop evolving. Manson introduces the concept of the value of being wrong. Being wrong isn't a sign of stupidity. It's proof that you're learning something new. If you can constantly update your beliefs when presented with evidence, you'll become more adaptable and resilient. He even suggests adopting the mindset of, I might be wrong about everything. It sounds extreme, but it keeps you humble and curious. This naturally leads to the importance of saying no more often. Every yes you give to something unimportant is a no to something meaningful. Because you have limited FCKs to give, every yes should be intentional. And that means being okay with disappointing people sometimes. People-pleasing is just another way of spreading yourself too thin and caring about things that don't truly matter to you. Manson tells a personal story about turning down a business opportunity that looked lucrative, but didn't align with his long-term vision. At first, he feared missing out, but over time he realized that saying no freed him to focus on projects that actually mattered to him. One of the most impactful lessons in the book comes from the idea that our values determine our metrics for success and failure. If you value superficial things like always being liked, always feeling comfortable, or always looking good, your metrics for success will be fragile, and your happiness will constantly be at risk. On the other hand, if you value honesty, creativity, growth, or contribution, you'll measure success in ways you can actually control. For example, if your value is being a good friend, your metric might be showing up for my friends when they need me, which is within your power, unlike having more friends than anyone else, which depends on external factors. Manson calls this choosing better values. Better values are reality-based, socially constructive, and controllable. Bad values are superstitious, socially destructive, or not controllable. Choosing better values is like upgrading the operating system of your mind. It changes how you interpret everything. He gives the example of his past value of being interesting, which led him to do reckless things just to impress people. Over time, he realized this wasn't sustainable and shifted to values like honesty and integrity, which gave him a stronger sense of self-worth. Another chapter dives into the concept of mortality and how facing it can bring clarity. Most of us avoid thinking about death because it's uncomfortable, but Manson argues that it's liberating. When you fully accept that your time is limited, the petty things stop mattering. You start asking deeper questions. If I only had 1 year left to live, what would I stop doing right now? Death strips away the trivial. In a strange way, it teaches you how to live. This is where he introduces the do something principle. The idea that action isn't just the effect of motivation, it's the cause of it. We often think we need to feel motivated before we take action, but in reality, taking action generates motivation. If you're stuck, don't wait for inspiration. Do something small and the momentum will build. This breaks the cycle of procrastination and fear. In summary, the subtle art of not giving a F key isn't about ignoring everything or being indifferent. It's about caring deeply, but only about the things that align with your chosen values. It's about accepting life's inevitable struggles and picking the ones that make your life meaningful. It's about letting go of the constant chase for positivity and embracing reality with honesty, humility, and courage. Manson's final message is that you only have so many FCKs to give in your lifetime, so make sure they're given to something worth it. Every moment you spend worrying about something unimportant is a moment stolen from something that actually matters to you. In that way, the art of not giving a FCK is really the art of living intentionally. Now, before we go deeper, we have to acknowledge something about Mark Manson's core philosophy. He is not saying, don't care about anything. That's the biggest misunderstanding people have about the book. The real idea is, you have limited energy, time, and emotional bandwidth in life, so you need to be extremely selective about where you place your care. If you try to care about everything and about every opinion, every problem, every trend, every person's approval, you'll exhaust yourself, live anxiously, and end up miserable. So instead of wasting your attention on meaningless issues, you should invest it in things that truly align with your values. And here's the kicker. This is harder than it sounds because our brain is wired to care about way too many things. We evolved to notice every threat, every social signal, every judgment. Thousands of years ago, caring about whether the tribe liked you was a matter of survival. Now, your tribe is the entire internet, and everyone seems to have an opinion on everything you do. If you're not careful, your mind will be in a constant state of anxiety and comparison. Manson's solution is radical acceptance of your limitations. You can't be amazing at everything. You can't solve every problem. You can't please everyone. And here's the harsh truth. Even if you try to, you're still going to fail at some point. So why not embrace that reality now? Why not choose your battles consciously instead of letting the world choose them for you? The first principle he teaches is the power of saying no. Not just no to people you dislike, but no to tempting distractions, to unnecessary drama, to commitments that don't align with your deepest priorities. Every time you say yes to something, you're actually saying no to something else, usually something more important. For example, if you say yes to endless scrolling on social media, you're saying no to your own growth. If you say yes to a relationship that drains you, you're saying no to a potential relationship that could fulfill you. If you say yes to keeping everyone happy, you're saying no to your own authenticity. And here's the paradox. When you start saying no to the wrong things, your life feels lighter, more focused, and more free. You're not carrying around the weight of trying to fix or control things you can't. Manson also talks about the idea of embracing struggle. He says that happiness comes from solving problems, not from avoiding them. We live in a culture obsessed with comfort. Better technology, more convenience, less effort. But comfort is not the same as happiness. In fact, too much comfort leads to boredom, dissatisfaction, and a lack of meaning. Imagine you win the lottery tomorrow. At first, you're ecstatic, no more bills, no more stress. But eventually, with nothing challenging you, life becomes strangely empty. You start to miss the small victories, the sense of earning something, the joy of progress. This is why Manson says that real satisfaction comes from choosing good problems to solve. Notice the word choosing, Aikwan, because you're always going to have problems. The only difference is whether those problems are worth your energy. For example, being out of shape is a problem. Training for a marathon is also a problem. It requires effort, discipline, and pain. But one problem drags you down while the other makes you stronger. The problems you choose define the quality of your life. And here's the deeper point. Your values determine the problems you choose. If your values are shallow, like wanting to be liked by everyone or chasing endless status, you'll choose shallow problems. But if your values are strong, like growth, honesty, and contribution, you'll choose problems that actually lead to a fulfilling life. This is why Manson spends a lot of the book challenging our default values. Many of us inherit values from society, family, or culture without ever questioning them. Maybe you were raised to believe that financial success is the ultimate measure of worth, so you chase it blindly, only to find yourself empty when you achieve it. Maybe you believe that being nice is always good, so you suppress your needs to avoid conflict, and then you wonder why people take advantage of you. The book forces you to step back and ask, is this value really mine? Or did I just absorb it because everyone around me believed it? Or, once you start questioning your values, you can rebuild them on a foundation that actually makes sense for the life you want. And here's where things get uncomfortable. Changing your values often means letting go of old identities. If you've always been the smart one, or the successful one, or the reliable one, it can feel scary to let go of those labels. But holding on to them too tightly keeps you stuck in a box, living for other people's expectations instead of your own truth. Manson also talks a lot about the concept of responsibility. He draws a sharp distinction between fault and responsibility. Something may not be your fault. For example, maybe you were born into poverty, maybe you were cheated on, maybe you got sick. But even if it's not your fault, it's still your responsibility to decide how you respond. No one is coming to save you. Life is not fair. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can focus on what you can control instead of wasting energy on what you can't. This is powerful because it shifts you from a victim mindset to an empowered one. If you're always waiting for the world to fix your problems, you'll wait forever. But if you take ownership, even over things you didn't cause, you reclaim your agency. The final big theme in the book is about mortality. Manson believes that thinking about death is not depressing, it's liberating. When you realize you only have a limited number of days, you stop wasting them on nonsense. You stop caring about petty arguments, about impressing strangers, about chasing things that don't matter in the long run. Instead, you start focusing on the few things that make life truly rich: love, connection, growth, contribution, and meaningful experiences. Death is the ultimate filter for deciding what's worth giving a fuck about. If something won't matter on your deathbed, it probably doesn't deserve your energy today. This perspective helps you live more intentionally, more authentically, and more courageously. You stop waiting for the perfect time because you know time is never guaranteed. You start taking risks that matter because you realize the biggest risk is living a life you'll regret. In the end, the subtle art of not giving a fuck is not about apathy. It's about clarity. It's about choosing a handful of things to care deeply about and letting the rest go. It's about living with purpose instead of distraction, with values instead of social pressure, with courage instead of fear. And perhaps the most important takeaway is this: your life is shaped not by how much you care, but by what you care about. Choose wisely, and you can build a life that feels free, meaningful, and deeply your own. Manson makes it clear that the subtle art is not about being indifferent to everything, nor is it about ignoring reality. It's about developing a deeper sense of responsibility for what you choose to care about, and refusing to be pulled in 100 directions by trivial issues. When you start saying no to more things, you're actually saying yes to the things that matter most. And this is liberating. He dives into the idea of not giving a fuck as a kind of superpower, not in a cold, detached way, but in a focused, meaningful way. Imagine you have a finite number of coins in your pocket, each representing your energy and attention. Every time you give a fuck about something, you spend 1 coin. You can't get them back. If you throw them away on gossip, petty arguments, or impressing strangers on the internet, you'll have nothing left for your health, your closest relationships, or your long-term dreams. This is where people get stuck. They overvalue the insignificant and undervalue the truly important. Manson tells us to flip that pattern. He gives examples of people who've mastered this art. There's the musician who refuses to chase fame, choosing instead to make music that he loves for a smaller but deeply loyal audience. There's the entrepreneur who stops running after every business trend and focuses only on the few ideas that truly excite him. These people have learned that you can't control everything, so it's pointless to waste emotional energy on what you can't change. Instead, you focus on what you can. The book keeps circling back to one hard truth. Life is full of problems. You cannot escape them, and trying to live problem-free is a fantasy. The only freedom you have is choosing which problems you want to solve. If you choose problems that align with your values, you'll feel fulfilled. If you choose problems based on what others expect from you, you'll feel miserable. Manson shares his own life mistakes to prove the point. He talks about chasing shallow successes, women, money, fame, only to find they brought little satisfaction. It was when he stopped caring about looking successful and instead focused on living according to his values that his happiness improved. And here's where he brings in the backwards law from philosopher Alan Watts. The more you pursue feeling good all the time, the less satisfied you become. The more you chase certainty, the more anxious you get. The more you desperately try to be liked, the more people sense the desperation and pull away. It's a paradox, and it's why trying to be happy all the time backfires. Instead of running from discomfort, Manson tells us to embrace it. Lean into the awkwardness, the uncertainty, the pain. These things are signals that you're doing something meaningful. If you're working toward a big goal and it's hard, that's good. If you're having a tough conversation with someone you care about, that's good. Discomfort means growth. The book's middle chapters go deeper into values, how to choose them and how to discard the harmful ones. Bad values, Manson says, are based on things you can't control. Being popular, being rich, being seen as the smartest person in the room. These lead to endless frustration. Good values are rooted in reality and within your control. Honesty, creativity, self-respect, kindness. You can live by these every day, regardless of circumstances. He also dismantles the idea that we are special in the way society often tells us. The "you're special" culture, he argues, has created entitlement. People believing they deserve greatness without putting in the work. Manson admits he used to be one of these people, but life taught him the truth. You are not special in a way that excuses you from responsibility. You're special in that you have unique opportunities to make your life meaningful, but that requires effort, sacrifice, and the willingness to be wrong sometimes. And that's another big theme: being wrong. Manson says we should constantly question our own beliefs because being wrong is a sign we're learning. People cling to being right because it feels safe, but that safety can trap them. If you're wrong about something and you refuse to admit it, you can't improve. If you admit you're wrong, you open the door to better understanding. This ties into his discussion of uncertainty. Not knowing is uncomfortable, but it's the birthplace of growth. By accepting that you don't know everything, you make room to learn what matters. One of the most powerful sections of the book is about mortality. Manson argues that remembering your own death is one of the best motivators to live well. When you realize you're going to die, the petty stuff starts to fall away. You stop worrying about whether strangers like your Instagram posts and start focusing on experiences, people, and contributions that will outlast you. He shares a story of a friend's sudden death and how it shook him into questioning the way he was spending his time. This awareness of death isn't meant to make you morbid. It's meant to sharpen your focus. Every moment you waste on meaningless drama is a moment you'll never get back. The book closes with a clear message. Stop giving a fuck about everything and start giving a fuck about the few things that truly matter to you. The subtle art is really the skill of filtering. Every day you're bombarded with noise. News, ads, opinions, notifications. Most of it doesn't matter. The skill is tuning out the noise and tuning into your values. That's the path to a good life. By the end, Manson's advice is brutally simple. You have a limited number of fucks to give in this life. Don't waste them on things you can't control, or things that don't align with who you want to be. Choose your battles, embrace the struggle, and keep your focus sharp. That's how you find freedom, not by caring about less, but by caring more about the right things.